A lot of my clients watch a lot of tennis, and of course they're picking up terminology and they're trying to emulate certain patterns. And as I said before, I draw a lot of inspiration for my videos from the sessions that I'm teaching, predominantly 3-5, 4-0, 4-5 players. So this is definitely one of them. So one of the things that I'm seeing quite often actually is that somebody's trying to go for way too much too early in a point, meaning they're trying to hit it as hard as possible and they're trying to go for balls that just don't make any sense. And then of course I'm asking, what were you trying to do with that ball? And I do hear a lot of times, I wanted to play first strike tennis. And I think there's a huge misunderstanding, and this video is all about clearing that up. What first strike tennis is not is to try to hit as hard as possible immediately, either on the return or the first ball off the serve, or going for broke really early on in the rally. First strike tennis really is more about trying to take over the point, yes, very soon in the rally, so that you can play the rest of the point on your terms. And while I'm still thinking that at lower levels, 2-5, 3-0, it is all about keeping the ball in play and making balls, the higher you get in the ratings, the more you have to jump on opportunities and be smart about how you structure the point. Because everybody can keep the ball in play longer, with more precision, more depth, and most likely harder. So you do have to do something early on in the point so that you're not just reacting to what your opponent is doing. The other way is to hit shots that are really uncomfortable for your opponent, making them do things that they either don't want to do, can't do, and first strike tennis, to my mind, is also about being okay to forcing error, because that's what you're trying to do. One of the boxes that higher rated players are checking is the serve placement. And even if you're not quite rock solid on the serve placement, I would love for you to start planning your first 2 shots so that you play the point, the first 2 balls at least, on your terms. And here's what I mean with that. So one good pattern to start with is to serve out wide and then hit the next ball into the open court. So on the deuce court, if I'm a right-hander, I'm trying to hit a slice out wide, and yes, I'm going potentially to my opponent's strength to the forehand, but that leaves the backhand wide open. And it's just the open court. I don't care if it's their strength or their weakness. And then of course, if I do have control over the serve placement on the ad side, I'm going out wide, and I have the deuce court then as the open side. But how do you want to structure the point if you're not quite rock solid with the serving, with the placement yet? That is when we divide the court. As a right-handed player, when I'm going out wide towards the doubles alley and I do want to go into the open court, that does often involve a change of direction. And yeah, if I'm a higher rated player, I'm probably going to be okay with that. So anything that lands here into the right half, for me the right half, I can go and change direction, go into the open court. If I'm not quite sure how to do that, or I don't feel I want to do that, go right back behind them, go back cross court. It's a little bit more passive, you're not going to make him move as much, but it's a change of direction for them moving wise. So moving a lot will also cause errors. And very simple, if I get a ball to my outside, when I'm starting the point on the deuce court, I'm just hitting a backhand into the open side of the court. That is a cross court backhand, that's my higher percentage shot. So each time you know where you're serving, even if the serve does not necessarily land where you plan it to do, you know exactly what you want to do with that second ball. And if you're interested in learning more about first strike tennis and other things that the actually creator of that name, First Strike Tennis, Craig O'Shaughnessy, has come up with, I suggest that you check out the Fuzzy Yellow Balls app. You go on the Fuzzy Yellow Balls app and you click on the new rules of singles 2023, and you get a whole lot of patterns that are based on the latest statistics that are high percentage and super smart. Now let's get back to first strike tennis. First strike tennis is about being aggressive in a smart way, and one of the ways that you're doing that is to establish an aggressive court position, meaning closer towards the baseline to take time away from your opponent. If you know what you're doing on the first two balls when you're serving, it gives you the freedom then to look for the other cues on how to put pressure on your opponent. And that is to identify shorter balls. That is one of the things that top players do really, really well. And I think that's something that we can all work on. So a really good cue that I like to take over the point and being aggressive and moving up to take time away from them is when you have both of your feet either on the baseline or inside the baseline. That's when you can be aggressive. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're coming into net. You can, of course, if it's the right ball. But from here, it's going to put unbelievable pressure on them because their ball is coming back so quickly, and you can also open angles. So next time you do watch tennis and you do watch Iga Swiatek, look how good she is from going from defense to offense. Meaning she's always working, when she's playing defense, she's pushed away from the baseline to then come forward and up again. It's not necessarily how hard she hits the ball, but it's really also the time factor that hurt her opponents. Really good players, really experienced players can judge really well where the ball's bouncing, how fast it is, what kind of height of bounce it has, what spin it has, and that allows them to move up when it's appropriate. Newer players sometimes have a little bit more of an issue, and that's a perception issue, the judging where the ball bounces. And here's a great drill for it. You can do it when you're just rallying, or then also when you're playing points, and just in your mind say yes when you think you can move up. And again, you always want to keep that ball between hip and shoulder, so don't force yourself to short hop anything. Yes. No. Or just say no when you think you don't have the chance to move up to that ball and take it either on the rise or the top of the bounce. What about when I return? Obviously, I'm a little bit at the mercy of the server, and especially when you play a good server, your goal is to neutralize your opponent. You want to take away the opportunities that basically you're looking for when you're serving. So one way to do that when you're returning is to go right back at them deep through the middle, because that makes them not able to move up. You might even push them back, which of course is going to give you a more passive response. And from the middle here, it's really, really difficult to create angles. So goal number one is to, of course, make the return, but with the quality that neutralizes your opponent. Another option is to chip the return. With the chip, the backspin, you slow the ball down a little bit, and ideally it sits a little lower. So your opponent doesn't have the chance to get under it as well, and they have to lift it, which usually slows the ball down, which gives you the opportunity to get into a good, potentially defensive position, and or it's already short enough that you can then take over the point. That is first strike tennis. If you want more exclusive content, check out my Patreon membership, because there I'm posting a lot more stuff that I'm not posting anywhere else. And if you're in the Grand Slam level, you're also joining our monthly live coaching call. So lots of perks. Check it out, my Patreon membership.